Welcome back to another episode of UFC Casuals. I'm Bobby, along with my co-host Andrew, and today we got quite a bit to get into. Starting with last weekend's pay-per-view, UFC 295. Hell of a card, a lot of finishes, all knockouts. Which I didn't
Early.
think the Andrade Dern fight would end in a finish, but we got 5 finishes, pretty rare for a pay-per-view. Incredible card. We'll waste no more time. We'll jump right into the main event. Yuri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira gets out of there. The round 2 knockout. What do you make of this one?
I think we both kind of predicted this would happen. Alex. Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, I didn't want it to happen. I'm a Yuri guy, but I even predicted it. Right? It was written in the stars this would happen. He would eat a left hook, and don't get me wrong, the first round, Yuri had success, but the low leg kick by Alex is just disgusting. I mean, 1 or 2 of those things, and Yuri's leg was already beat up.
The first leg kick Alex threw, it swept his legs out from under him. I mean, it was.
And he had to switch stance multiple times. You could see it already swelling up after like 3 kicks, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, the left hook and the low calf kick are 2 unstoppable moves. I mean, you really can't defend it because if you get in too close, he can land either one. And he's a tough guy to fight. He's a tough guy to beat. You can win rounds on him, but he has those just erasers, right? He has the left hook. He has the low calf kick that'll just beat you up throughout a fight. And he finds a way to win, and he landed it, man. He landed it.
Yeah. We talked about how Yuri, a path to victory for him could be the grappling and just getting this fight to the ground in general. And we saw he won round 1, in my opinion at least, off of the work he did on the ground, getting some ground and pound in there. Didn't really threaten a submission at any point, but we thought the ground game could be a little bit of a path to victory for Yuri if he was going to pull this out. And he did good in round 1 with it. But, every round starts on the feet. Every round starts on the feet, and there's going to be plenty of exchanges, especially throughout a 5-round fight that are on the feet. It feels like anytime Alex Pereira is fighting, it's only a matter of time until he catches him.
And Yuri was doing a good job coming forward like he always does. I mean, he was fighting his fight. He looked like himself, I felt like. He was even landing some good shots on the feet. Even when he was pouncing on him there when he got knocked out, he was coming forward. He was landing overhand rights. He had Alex back up against the cage. He thought, all right, this is the kill shot. Then boom, Alex lands the kill shot of his own and gets Yuri down. Obviously, there was some talk about the stoppage from ourselves. Plenty of other people, of course, thought. But then you hear Yuri after the fight at the post-fight speech say it was a good stoppage. That's just Yuri, though. He's an honorable guy.
Being humble.
This was early, don't you think, man?
It was definitely early. He went out. That left hook from Alex put him out. Very briefly, though. We've seen Yuri go out in other fights, though, like that up kick against Dominic Reyes, I believe it was. And then he went on to sleep him. So this happens in nearly every Yuri fight. He's gotten caught. He hasn't gotten put out in all of them, but against Reyes he did. He got put out for a second, came back to, and then not long after finished the fight with a nasty spinning elbow. That's Yuri's recovery time is insane, and you got to understand who you're reffing when you're reffing, especially with the title fight too. I understand, if this was an early prelims fight and you're trying to protect the fighters, sure, whatever, I get that. But we're talking about a belt on the line. Let there be no doubt about who the champion is. Let there be no question about whether or not it was an early stoppage. I think Alex probably would have ended up on full mount. He would have landed a couple ground and pound shots 8 out of 10 times and finished the fight. But it's a title fight. You got to let all scenarios play out. And you don't want to see him take unnecessary damage, but you don't want to leave unanswered questions like we have now.
Yeah, unanswered questions. And you hit the nail on the head. You got to understand who you're reffing, right? And you said these early prelim fights, you see somebody go limp like Yuri did, sure. But the fact that we've seen Yuri do this before and come back within seconds, and he was doing it here. He gets dropped bad. It looks like he's out cold, but he's still shooting double leg. He falls to his back. Like you mentioned, Alex is going to be in full mount. But what's to say, just let it go a little bit longer, a few seconds more. Alex can get up in full mount and land 1 or 2 more shots, then you stop it. But no, we don't even get to see if Yuri would have had time to recover. But, I don't want to discredit Alex's performance. He landed the big shot. He's won a championship in 2 divisions in 9 MMA or 11 MMA fights or whatever it is, like 5 UFC fights. It's ridiculous, man.
Crazy. It's crazy. I mean, he's one of the best combat fighters of all time. There's no question about it now. 2-division champion in Glory, 2-division champion in the UFC. There's only been a handful of fighters. I think there's only been 4 that have been double champs simultaneously, but I think there's only I want to say 9 or 10 that have held the belt in 2 different divisions. So he's
Yeah.
joining elite company with this win.
I mean, yeah, no doubting that Alex is one of the best combat sports athletes of all time after this. And for Yuri, it's the first fight back off an injury. He looked okay. He won round 1. I'm glad he's back. He's easily one of my favorite fighters, just that wild style. And he did not go away from his style at all in this fight. I was happy to see that. He didn't look too hesitant. Obviously, there were some times he kind of slowed down because those leg kicks were eating up at him. But you could expect that from anyone. But Yuri will be back to his wild. He was his wild self in this fight, and it just will never get away from him. The threat of a left hook, and he just walks that guy down. And yes, he gets caught, but man, it's Yuri, man. Fuck it.
Not only does he walk him down, he was sticking his chin out there the whole time, leaning forward with his chin stuck out in the air, and I was like, this guy's gonna get caught. He's gonna get caught. Ultimately, he did, but it wasn't because he had his chin stuck out there. It's because he blitzed in like a maniac. But yeah, he didn't get away from his style, which was kind of encouraging to see, and he actually looked good at moments with that style, which I thought would be a big problem against Alex. I mean, there were times where he had Alex backed against the cage, and I was like, ooh, there could be a finishing sequence coming up. I mean, he looked like he was getting ready to start pouring it on him, but Alex, he was able to get out of those pretty comfortably and find the shot that we were all expecting, that left hook that put Yuri out.
That's just the main difference in any Alex Pereira fight is you can find shots to pick on Alex. You can land. He's a very hittable fighter. But the only difference is he finds you too. And when he finds, the fight's over.
Hits a lot harder, yeah.
That's the main difference, I think, in this fight was just the killer shot. Alex has it. Yuri couldn't find it. And, man, Alex Pereira, what a scary guy. 205 has a new champ, man.
Yep. Hell of a champ he is. We'll move on to the co-main event. Sergey Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall. Aspinall gets out of there with just over a minute into the fight, getting a knockout. And this wasn't any question about this stoppage. He put Pavlovich out cold. Landed some nasty follow-up shots on the ground, too. Wow. What a performance from Tom Aspinall. We'll get into the matchmaking in a little bit, but let me just say before we get into this, you cannot deny him. Don't give old man Stipe a title fight against Jones. This man should be fighting for the undisputed belt next, no question about it. But we'll get into the fight. We'll just talk about that for now. We'll get into the matchmaking in a bit. What'd you make of this one?
Yeah, the fight itself, it's a minute long, so I understand.
Not a lot to talk about.
There's not a lot to talk about. Yeah. But I will say, Tom Aspinall ate one of Sergey Pavlovich's probably best shots he could have landed. It's just a great left hook. It landed flush, dude.
And I think against any other heavyweight that sits them on their ass, especially with how Aspinall was starting to lean back too, that shot would have put any other heavyweight down.
But Tom Aspinall, there's just one thing. I mean, he's so fast, man. It's not even fair for a guy that big to move that fast.
Yeah.
And not even just with his hands. Yes, his hands are elite speed, I mean, fastest at a heavyweight, no doubt, and maybe Cyril Gahn, but they're probably one and the same in that aspect. But his defense, his head movement, he just rolls with shots that other heavyweights would not be able to do, and they would sit there and just take it from Sergey Pavlovich and get knocked out. We've seen it time and time again. But Tom Aspinall rolled with the punches. He ate a left hook. He kept on the back foot. He was just circling out. He did a great job. And then he wait to pick his shot, and boom, just 1-2. Pavlovich on his back, out cold. I mean, I called it. Hey, I predicted it. So,
yeah, you did, man. I knew Aspinall. I knew his movement was different for heavyweights. I knew he bounces around like he's a welterweight. I mean, it's crazy. His speed and his movement's ridiculous. But he made a guy like Sergey Pavlovich, who looks fast for heavyweights, who has crazy hand speed, who has solid movement amongst heavyweights. He made him look slow. I mean, the way he was bouncing in and out of there, landing shots, ducking out the head movement, getting out of the way of the big shots. Obviously, he ate one from Pavlovich, but his chin held up. We know he has a great chin now. He can eat the best shot from Sergey Pavlovich, and that says something. But man, he just made the way he bounced around and was in and out of there against Sergey Pavlovich. I mean, he just looks different. And I know we talk about Cyril Gahn and how great his movement is and how light on the feet he is and quick he is for a heavyweight. But Aspinall, he's quicker, number one, and it's not so much like him circling around and we don't really see heavyweights circle around. We see Cyril Gahn do that. He'll circle around the cage. His movement's good. Aspinall, he goes in and out so quick. I mean, it's different. We've never seen a heavyweight like this. I'm in disbelief after watching that.
And part of that is his fights are so quick that he's so fresh.
Yeah.
I mean, he's able to look that quick because he's never been put into deep water. So, maybe, down the line in a fight that gets out of the first round, it'll be interesting to see how Tom Aspinall's speed holds up against a heavyweight like this, and maybe power becomes more of an issue in the later rounds for him. But it hasn't been needed. I mean, he puts people out of there so quick that it's not even like so many heavyweights rely on one, like looping shots, right? Looping overhands.
Yep.
Tom Aspinall just throws a 1-2 down the pipe like it's nothing, and it puts you on your ass.
Yeah.
It's so confusing. Like, he doesn't rely on power at all. It's just these heavyweights have never seen speed like this to the point where it shocks them, right? Yeah. Tom Aspinall landed that 1-2 so quickly that Pavlovich was rocked, and he had no time to react before another 1-2 was right down the pipe, knocking him out cold. Like, just so insanely fast for a heavyweight. And the guy's 6'5", 250. It's not like, he's a smaller dude. This is a big guy this fast.
Massive heavyweight.
He's the number one heavyweight in the world right now. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. I know you said he doesn't rely on his power, which is true. He relies on how good he is technically, how quick he is. But he has that power. He has that power. Nobody that sleeps Sergey Pavlovich in a minute doesn't have power. I mean, that's what's so scary about him. You see guys like Cyril Gane. We talk about how great his striking is, how quick he is, how good his movement is, but he lacked that power. He chips away at guys and he gets finishes into the second, like late second, early third rounds of fights, like against Tuivasa, against Spivak, guys like those. But with Aspinall, he's got that early finishing potential that Cyril Gane doesn't have, which is just scary to think about. And he has wrestling on top of that. I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you there. He's the best heavyweight in the world right now.
And it just brings, especially the wrestling, some heavyweight division that just has never been seen before. With so many brawlers, and we thought we were getting something different with Cyril Gane, but then he didn't have wrestling, right? So now we're pretty much getting Cyril Gane with more power and much better wrestling. Who's going to beat Tom Aspinall?
It's hard to say.
I'll see it.
It's hard to say. Hell of a performance, man. I'm still in shock from that performance. I thought Pavlovich, I thought his hand speed would be too much. I thought his size and power would be too much. But Aspinall ate his best shot. He took his best shot, kept going, and finished him seconds later. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
And are we going to talk about that Tom Aspinall did not train? I mean,
he couldn't train. He had the back injury. Short notice going into the fight with the back injury. No excuses made, too. I know in the build-up he talked about how he stressed how this was a short notice fight. He made that very clear. And it seemed like there may have been some built-in excuses in case he lost. But he didn't mention anything about that back issue. That didn't come out until after he won. So he was going through a ton of adversity, and he still dominated Sergey Pavlovich.
And I won't even, criticize him for being a little scared about taking the fight on short notice, because you're fighting Sergey Pavlovich here. He's coming off the couch with no training to fight. People said the biggest killer in heavyweight.
Yeah.
We just saw the new scariest killer in heavyweight. Big Tom Aspinall. He's the interim heavyweight champ. He's the undisputed champion. Because those bums above him have no right being called undisputed after a performance like that from Tom Aspinall. That's the real champ.
I'm with you. We'll get into the matchmaking segment. We'll have plenty of words for John Jones and Stipe in a bit. We'll move on to the third fight on the card, Jessica Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern. Andrade gets out of there with a round 2 knockout. So some puzzling decision-making from Dern. I know she's not known for necessarily shooting takedowns, but the game plan couldn't have been to stand on the feet with Jessica Andrade, especially for that long. You would think, especially with her getting knocked down a couple times, she would start to shoot for a takedown. Didn't see one all fight. Puzzling performance from her. Good win from Andrade, though.
Yeah, Mackenzie Dern kind of reminds me of how Ronda Rousey would fight, where, and she got a takedown on Andrade, like a good little, shoulder, like over the top. Just a nice slam, and then she just never went back to it. It was puzzling, and she was relying on her boxing against a lady, a little midget lady, whose only path to victory was her power.
Yeah,
literally her only path to victory was getting in the pocket and landing shots, and that's what she did. And did Mackenzie Dern's coaches not tell her this? Who is her coach?
I would have loved to hear that corner advice going into round 2. I want to know what they told her, because I don't know if she just didn't listen or if they were telling her the wrong things, but that performance was so confusing.
And to get the takedown the way she did, and then to just never go back to it and just stand in the pocket with Jessica Andrade, just horrible. I mean, women's MMA at its finest right there, ladies and gentlemen. No, who was it? MMA Guru who said we need IQ tests for.
Yeah, that was his idea, and I'm with that. I'm with that 100%.
I would love
Especially
to know
if people are betting on these fights.
I would love to know Mackenzie Dern's IQ. Because it can't be high.
Especially considering Andrade, she's been subbed in 2 of her last 3 fights. She's on a 3-fight losing streak, subs in 2 of her last 3. It made so much sense for someone who has the submission threat of Mackenzie Dern. She has that jiu-jitsu. You would think she would try and get this to the mat, but she didn't. She tried to stand and bang with Andrade. And we know Andrade is the one who gets a little bit reckless at times. We saw in the Yan Xiaonan fight how she just rushed in, throwing looping shots. I know we're used to seeing that with Andrade, but Dern looked reckless at times. She was the one who looked more clueless on the feet and going in like I was going to say a wild man, but a wild woman, and Jessica Andrade made her pay for it. So I really don't know what Dern's game plan there was.
And the difference between Yan Xiaonan and Mackenzie Dern is Mackenzie Dern is the power or level of fighting. Yeah, the boxing is not on par with a Yan Xiaonan. Yeah. And Mackenzie Dern did not play to her strengths in this fight, definitely.
Yeah.
Horrible performance.
Yeah, good performance by Andrade, though. She did what she needed to win. She completely outclassed her on the feet. And, coming off 3 straight losses, you'd start to think the confidence would take a hit, but she, didn't stray away from what she's done best. Great win by her, and hopefully she gets back on track because of it.
Yeah, I mean, good win for her. She definitely needed it. I mean, if you lose that, then where do you even go from there? 4 straight losses, you might be getting cut range, right? So
cut territory, just retire at that point.
Retirement, whatever. Yeah, so big win for her to stay in the top 5 of strawweight somehow. After 3 straight losses, she's still in the top 5. That's women's MMA for you. Good win. Hey, good win.
Good win for Andrade. Good win for Andrade. We'll move on to the second fight on the main card, Matt Frevola versus Benoit Saint Denis. Saint Denis gets out of there with a head kick round 1 as Frevola was circling out with his hands down. Nasty head kick. Didn't even catch him with the shin. He caught him with the foot. Just hit him right on the temple with the foot and shut his lights out. Beautiful head kick by Benoit Saint Denis, and he continues to climb up those lightweight rankings.
Dude, and these fights are moving so quick.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to like how long did this fight last? Do you know? I mean, it like
1 minute 30 seconds.
A minute 30 seconds.
Yep.
I could not tell you what happened the first 1 minute 25 seconds of this fight.
Three fights ended. Okay, so the Diego Lopez fight ended in a minute 30 seconds. Frevola Saint Denis ended in a minute 31, and then Sergey and Aspinall ended in a minute 9 seconds.
Yeah, so it's really hard to do analysis on these fights.
Yeah.
All that I remember from this fight is that still image of Frevola circling out, getting away, and then boom, foot right to temple. I mean, out. Unnecessary. I think he might even landed a shot, but it was unnecessary. Ref couldn't get there in time. It happened so quickly. So man, Benoit Saint Denis, man, what a scary guy. I was talking about how he needs to get in close and make this dirty because you don't want to be at range with Frivola's boxing. I think we both know you don't want to get at range with Frevola here, and but range was no issue. He found the perfect range. A devastating head kick, and we've seen a lot of head kicks this year. Holy shit!
Yeah, and I guess Frevola just didn't see it coming. I don't know if he didn't expect that in Saint Denis' arsenal, because when he was circling out, he kind of had his back turned to him, hands down, and he just and it was such a quick kick too. He just flung it up there effortlessly, caught him right on the temple. It was a perfect head kick. It was a perfect head kick. Shut his lights up. Saint Denis, he is scary. He is scary. I didn't think there was much threat with the kicks from him. I didn't think that would be a big part of his striking arsenal, but he proved that he has that as well. So he's scary in that lightweight division.
Very scary, and tough loss for Frevola. He just cracked top 15 here. He was looking good, but they feed him a fucking killer. And I know he wanted this fight, and it was a great fight. He got him on a pay-per-view,
Yeah.
Just finding a younger, hungrier guy like Benoit Saint Denis, who's coming off some big wins, and then to get another win like that, I know he kind of called his shot post fight, and it's definitely a reach. But
I believe you called out Justin Gaethje, right?
Yeah, he called out Gaethje for whatever reason. He's not getting that, but
Poirier would have been the smarter call out, in my opinion.
To be on the run that he's on, I'd probably be that hyped too after a fucking devastating KO like that. Like, just go all guns a blazing. Give me the beam. I'm him, right? So, definitely give him a top 10 guy because he's skyrocketing and he's young and hungry. And finally, we have a contender at lightweight. I'm so happy.
Yep.
This is bad.
Yeah, he's very exciting. Hell of a performance by him. And another fight that ended pretty quickly: Diego Lopez versus Pat Sabatini. Our boy Diego Lopez, we all love him, gets out of there with a round 1 knockout, and he put out Sabatini cold. If you watch those follow-up shots on the ground, he was bouncing his head off the canvas. I mean, it was scary. With Diego Lopez, we saw how close he was to submitting Movsar Evloev. We have no doubt about him on the ground. In his second fight in the UFC, he is crazy. I don't know if I'd call it a flying triangle, but he attempted one and he turned it into an armbar. Nasty submission by him. So we know what he has on the ground. There's no doubt about that. We did have a little bit of concern about his striking. We didn't really know what that looked like. We saw it in this fight. Put Sabatini out cold. They were both standing up from a little bit of a little scramble on the ground. They're both standing up. Lopez catches them with an uppercut, rocks them bad, and then finishes the fight off the ground and pound. Hell of a performance by him.
And winning in a new way that, for a guy 3 fights in his UFC career, we didn't watch him, his earlier fights, right? But pre-UFC, so you don't know what he has in the arsenal. But this is his 9th career KO here. He's got power clearly now, and this is just a scary guy. You're gonna tell me he has boxing, and you just mentioned how good his jiu-jitsu is. He's not afraid to go to his back. Do we have like a new like Charles Oliveira here, where he just wants to like trade on the feet, and then if it goes to the ground, he's in his safe space. He's right where you want him to be. I mean, just a scary guy. Like it's a tough fight for anybody, I feel like. And,
I like that comparison a lot, actually.
Yeah, I mean, former featherweight himself, Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
Could we say Diego Lopez lightweight title run one day?
He is a pretty lanky featherweight. He's a pretty lanky featherweight. I could see him moving up to the lightweight at some point in his career.
Did I just crack the code?
You might have. We might have found our new Charles Oliveira.
Did I just make the perfect comparison? Because if he shows that he's willing to bang like this on the feet and clearly has power, that's right there what Charles is doing, man. And Diego Lopez, I called first round finish. Definitely didn't pick KO, but the legend of Diego Lopez knocked that fucking northeasterner out cold. So you'll love to see it, man. Pat Sabatini.
Yeah. And look, we don't know a whole lot about Pat Sabatini. I know he's been around. He's been in the game for a while. But he's a vet. He's a vet. Yeah. Obviously, he has power. He has some knockouts on his record, and he has good jiu-jitsu too. We've seen Sabatini on the ground. He does well down there. So we knew this would be a test. This would be a much tougher test for Lopez than his second fight in the UFC. He made quick work of him though. Didn't struggle at all with him in any aspect.
Dude, he was an underdog in this fight. I mean, good
Lord.
Which
was shocking. I put money on him. I've never felt more confident in a money line bet in the UFC on an underdog. I mean, that was unbelievable.
Unbelievable to see the underdog stat on him. And it's Diego Lopez. He was not losing that fight.
Yeah. Come on.
And can we just talk about time? And we were just mentioning this off camera, the rise of Diego Lopez. 2 of your first 3 UFC fights are on pay-per-view main cards.
Yeah.
And then in your second fight in the UFC, off a loss, by the way. I know he did great in the Evloev fight, but to be put on a main card of a fight night, like third to last fight, they are clearly pushing Diego Lopez, and we love it. The fans love him. The UFC clearly loves him. Dana White always talks about how much he loves him. He has a goofy haircut. He's marketable.
Yep.
If you're not,
and he's tapped into that Mexican and Brazilian audience too. Both of them love him. I mean, it's perfect.
If you haven't bought into the Diego Lopez stock at this point, what are you even doing?
You're too late. You're too late.
You're too late. It's already too hot. I mean, but it's only going up from here, though. I mean,
that's true.
Title run loading 2024. So, Diego Lopez, the moon, baby. What a performance.
I love it. Great performance by Diego Lopez. With that, we'll move on to our next segment of the show. We'll be matchmaking for every main card fighter on UFC 295. Of course, we'll start at the top of the main card. we'll move our way down, and for each fight, we'll start with the winners. So without any more wasting time, we'll get right into the main event. Alex Pereira, the winner. I have him fighting Jamal Hill, which I know he tore his Achilles earlier this year in August or so. I understand it's going to be a little bit of a layoff for Alex, but realistically, what else does he have? I don't think they'll give him the winner of Ankalaev versus Walker, because truthfully, I think Ankalaev's going to win. I think Ankalaev's going to beat him, and the UFC doesn't want that man anywhere near the belt, especially with how many fights they could make for Alex. They don't want Ankalaev anywhere in the picture. They'd prefer if Walker won, which if Walker won, then they could probably do Pereira versus Walker. I don't think that's going to happen, though. So I don't think either of these fighters are going to be in the picture. I know Pereira called out Izzy. That'd be a super fight. It'd be huge. It would sell so much. But Izzy's already said he wants to take time off. And Jamal Hill, in a video he put out, he said that Adesanya talked to him and said he's cool. Let Jamal Hill have his shot. He doesn't want to get in the mix of that. So I don't think the Alex versus Adesanya fight will happen. If at all, it won't happen anytime soon. So I think the next fight you'll have to make is Alex versus Jamal Hill. Obviously, Hill's been promised his title shot when he comes back. And I don't think there's any other fights you can make in the meantime. So this is the obvious one to make, and it'd be a great matchup too. I mean, Jamal Hill's definitely deserving. He held the belt. He never lost it. So it's the fight to make, I think. I know it's a little bit of a long layoff for Alex, who's getting up there in age, but realistically, there's not much else for him. So this is the one to make.
Yeah, and we kind of knew going into this fight that this division was cooked anyways. I mean,
yeah,
they were making a title fight for a guy who's had one fight in the division and Yuri, who's been injured for a year. Like, that was the two guys fighting for the title, was two dudes, off long, a guy who's not, it's not even his division, and then Yuri. So, why not wait the extra time to give Jamal Hill his shot after Yuri just got his shot off as well. So, speaking of Yuri Prohaska, I have him. He's the loser in this fight. And yes, he got knocked out, and, scream early stoppage all you want. I don't know how long he's going to be out or if he'll want to be back soon. That leg got ate up pretty bad. So, who knows? There could be some lingering injuries there. You never know. But, I think there's this fight happening in January. Jan Blachowicz and Alexander Rakic. Rakic coming off an injury himself. This whole division's either injured or fucking washed, right? So, but Rakic is a big opportunity for him off an ACL tear like that in that Jan fight that you could probably say he was doing pretty good in. Obviously he was getting his legs ate up, but it was a fight that was definitely winnable for him. And this is a fight that's still winnable for him, even off an ACL tear. He can definitely go out there and beat up Jan Blachowicz and get right back in that top 5 picture. And I think the winner of that fight will fight Yuri, just because, like you mentioned, what do you do? Maybe the winner of Ankalaev and Walker could get this fight with Yuri. The winner of that, if they're not going to get a title shot for a number 1 contender fight or whatever. But I just think, we're finally getting some names in this picture, like Rakic back, and Johnny Walker is a new name to look out for if he can get a big victory over Ankalaev. And there's finally fights to be made in this division, and I think I'm hoping Rakic wins so we get a new face up here. But even if Jan wins, that's a great fight with Yuri. So two former champs squaring off, I'm sure it would be a main event, and it'd be awesome. So that's my fight for Yuri.
I like it. We'll move on to the co-main event. I got Tom Aspinall in this one. Now, my initial thought, because of my hatred for John Jones, I immediately went and scribbled down in my notes Aspinall versus Jones. But that's too simple. Obviously, it's not going to work that way with how long John Jones is going to be out. So, in the meantime, we'll have Tom Aspinall defending his interim belt against Stipe Miocic, the man that John Jones was originally slated to fight, the heavyweight GOAT. I think Aspinall is going to kill him. I think this will be a brutal night for Stipe. I think he's an old man. We saw him limp into the arena. He doesn't have it anymore. It's sad to see. But there's no reason he should be fighting for the belt. So there's obviously, if they book if they book Jones versus Stipe next year, you'll have Aspinall out for way too long, and you'll have everybody saying, why is John Jones not fighting the second or the best contender? I know he's an interim champ, so he's not really a contender, but you get the point. The best non-undisputed champion in the world, right? Yeah. You don't want that controversy, so settle it with a fight between them early next year. You can do, I don't know, sometime in I guess maybe on UFC 300 you can do it. I think that would work. You do that sometime in April, I believe, since all the main events for the first 3 months of the year are booked up. But regardless, my fight for Aspinall next is Stipe Miocic. I think he'll kill him, and I think that would set up John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. And I know Jones versus Stipe has more name value, and it would probably sell more. But if Aspinall were to go out there and badly beat Stipe or knock him out in round 1, which he probably would 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a lot more star power for Aspinall, him beating the heavyweight GOAT. So I think this is the fight to make, and it'll set up a massive fight, him versus John Jones, a fight that I want to see badly because I don't like John Jones, and I want to see him go out on a loss, an ugly loss where he gets flatline KO'd. So give me Aspinall versus Stipe next, setting up Aspinall versus John Jones.
I love it. And why wouldn't Stipe want that? Because, he's going to wait another year to not, it'd be like 3 years off since his last fight.
And he's going to be pushing 50 by then, man.
Yeah. Like,
he's
why
old.
not? Why not fight young Henry Tom Aspinall in the meantime? And what if he beats Aspinall? What if he proved that he's the heavyweight GOAT? Then that fight with John Jones just becomes even bigger.
Yeah.
It would be even bigger. He'd have the interim title, and, you could unify the title. It'd be the biggest heavyweight fight of all time if Stipe pulled that out. Definitely wouldn't. But you nailed it on the head with everything you said. So I get the loser of this heavyweight title fight, interim, whatever the fuck. Sergey Pavlovich lost this fight badly and inside 1 minute 9 seconds. And you're going to have to fight down now because you were at the top, right? You're not even going to drop. He's still number 2, so obviously you fight down. Injured. You lost to Tom. I didn't know what to do here because there's a lot of heavyweights booked. There's a lot of heavyweights refusing to fight each other. Cyril Gahn, who, basically said, I will never fight Sergey Pavlovich because I don't need to, and I'm scared to. It's pretty much what he said.
And he also said he wouldn't fight Aspinall until Aspinall got the belt. Now he wants to challenge him, which is very weak. Don't give Cyril Gahn any shot at a title anytime soon. He's weak.
Whenever a Cyril Gahn fight is announced, we will get into plenty of slander for that.
We'll have that. We'll have that ready.
Cyril Gahn.
Unfortunate for him, his next fight is probably Jailton Almeida. So
I hope so. I know you don't
luck to Cyril Gahn.
I want it bad, so he'll lose. But
at least one of those two, we'll either get Almeida out of the picture after that fight against Derek Lewis. We can celebrate that, or we can celebrate Gahn getting out of the picture because he is a loser and has a very weak mentality when it comes to fighting.
Anyways, back to Sergey Pavlovich.
Sorry.
Still need to schedule a fight for here. So yeah, no Cyril Gahn because he's scared. And I think he's kind of knocked everybody out here. Don't give him a brawler. I want to see Sergey against a technical guy, and that's why I wrote down Volkov. Because I just think it makes sense. They're 2 Russians. You could do a UFC Russia. UFC is talking about wanting to go to all these different countries next year. Add Russia to the I don't know what the worst situation is there, if the ties are bad or not. But
if it's died down enough by then.
If it's died down enough in Moscow, there's no fighting happening in Moscow.
Yeah.
Right? So that'd be a sick man event. You'd get 2 Russians, so you don't want to bring in an opposing like nationality so they don't get killed or whatever. So just have 2 Russians in the main event, and everybody's happy, man.
I like it.
Perfect.
Hell of a matchup. We'll move on to the third fight on the card. Of course, you got the winner here, Jessica Andrade. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, Jessica Andrade in the win column for once in her.
Yep.
I almost forgot I was gonna have to go first here because she's losing streak. But yeah, she did win. She's still gonna have to fight down here. I feel like to lose 3 out of your last 4, you're not gonna be getting a number 1 contender fight or fighting for the title anytime soon.
Yeah. So
I wrote down. Let me get this right. Verna Drandradova, the crazy-eyed chick with the cross eyes or whatever, is an up-and-coming contender. She's young. So it just makes sense, right? Feed her to the beast. That's what you always say. Someone who's held a title and is now on a decline, you feed him to the young, hungry contender. And that just makes sense to me. If Andrade wins that, then she's held her status. She can start fighting up again. But, fighting a young, hungry contender, probably not going to win. As long as Verna doesn't go in with the same fucking strategy as Mackenzie Dern, I give her a much better chance.
I like it. For the loser of this fight, Mackenzie Dern, terrible performance. For the loser, I have her fighting Amanda Ribas. I have her fighting down. Now, this is under the assumption that Amanda Ribas beats Luana Pinheiro. They'll be on a similar timeline. I know Dern lost by knockout, but it wasn't really like she didn't take a ton of damage. She got knocked down, but she was fully with it, not concussed or anything. So she's fine overall. So I have Amanda Ribas. If she gets this bounce back win against Luana Pinheiro, I have them fighting for Dern's next fight. Without a doubt, she should be fighting down in the rankings. No question after that performance. But if she gets a win over Ribas, that'd be a good bounce back win, and she can get a streak going. But this is the fight I have next for her. Not one that I feel too confidently about her though.
Awful fighter.
Yeah, not much else to say there. Not much else to say there. We'll move on to some fun fighters next. Let's get into the second fight of the card. I have the winner, Benoit Saint Denis, here. Now, I know this will be a long time till this fight can be booked, so bear with me. I have him against Rafael Fiziev for his next fight, and I have a couple reasons. One, almost every lightweight is booked or injured for the foreseeable future, and so that's the case. If he were to fight anytime soon, it'd be fighting down. And if he were to fight any other ranked lightweight, it would probably be Drew Dober, and he just knocked out Matt Frevola. Matt Frevola knocked out Drew Dober. It doesn't make much sense to me. So considering Saint Denis has fought 3 times in the last 4 months, I'm okay with giving him a little bit of time off. And I don't think his hype train will die down too much, especially if you build up his hype by announcing a fight between him and Rafael Fiziev. That would be a massive fight.
In France?
That on a tape. In France, anywhere. Put that on a pay-per-view main card. That doesn't deserve to be on a fight night. That should be on a pay-per-view main card. Should be the feature fight. That would be a hell of a matchup. Great boxing. So much power between the two of them. Both really exciting fighters. This would be an incredible matchup. And it'd be a chance for Fiziev to get back on track if he were to come out there and win. I'd probably have my money on Saint Denis, though. I can't lie. But it'd be a great bounce back win for Fiziev if he were able to pull it out to get back on track. And then Saint Denis, if he gets this, if he were to go out there and beat Fiziev, who I know he's coming off a loss to I'm blanking here, Gamrot, but that was a fluky knee injury, so we don't really count it too much. Fiziev's still one of the top lightweights in the world, so if Saint Denis were to pull out a win against him, he'd probably be one fight away from a title shot.
Completely agree, man. Saint Denis, whoever he fights next, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
I have the loser. He falls out of the top 15 after just getting there, Matt Frevola. Tough luck. In your first, fight as a top 15 fighter. So now that you're out of the rankings, why don't you fight somebody else who just fell out of the top 15 himself? I'm spoiling it. Jalen Turner was Jalen Turner ever top 15? I can't remember, but
he was top 15. I think he's still up in there. I think he's at 12, I want to say.
Oh, okay, so he's in there, and he's coming off a bad loss in his own right. So they're both coming off some bad losses here. I just think it makes sense. Yes, they've fought before. It was a 30-27 decision for Frevola, I believe. That was like 5-6 years ago. It was like some of their first fights in the UFC. I don't hold it against either guy. Completely different fighters now, and they've had amazing fights since then. It would be an amazing fight now. Both guys need a bounce back win badly.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense. You fed Frevola a killer. That was hard. Let him fight somebody off a loss in their own right, and Jalen Turner, and put it on a co-main of a fight night. It'd be violence, man. It'd be a great fight. So I don't care that it's a rematch. Do it again.
I like it. And with that, we'll move on to the main card opener: Diego Lopez versus Pat Sabatini. You got the winner.
Let's go, Diego Lopez to the top. He called his shot, and I love people that call their shot after a win. It's a reasonable call out, right? We talked about some people calling out fucking, Saint Denis calling out Gaethje, right? Or what? But he didn't shoot too high to the stars here. Diego Lopez is a reasonable man, as you would expect from a reasonable haircut and reasonable fighter. So Diego Lopez called out Bryce Mitchell, and it makes perfect sense. Bryce Mitchell is right in that top 10 picture. It's a solid little step up for Lopez, but he's fought a top 10 guy and hung with him. So I don't think it's far out of reach here. Bryce Mitchell, it's a winnable fight for both guys. I feel like it'd be a great fight. We definitely learn a lot about Lopez's ground game with a Bryce Mitchell who has amazing jiu-jitsu in his own right if they were to go to the ground.
Yeah.
Standing up, we just saw Lopez's power, maybe to have the advantage there. You never know. I just want to see it. It would just be an interesting style, like clash wise, in both the skill sets. They seem really like they kind of like to do the same thing. So make it happen, man. I would love to see it.
Absolutely. I love that matchup. Would be a great fight. Be a great fight. We'll move on from that segment. We'll go ahead and cover the fight night taking place this weekend. UFC
Pat Sabatini.
Oh, Pat Sabatini. My bad. Easily forgettable. I'm sorry. Easily forgettable. And this fight would also be forgettable. I have Pat Sabatini versus David Onama next. Two guys that are around the same spot in the rankings. I don't want to hold this loss against Sabatini too much. I mean, he's fighting a surging prospect in Diego Lopez. So the odds makers didn't see this happening, but for the most part, we saw this happening. So I don't hold it too much against Pat Sabatini. Still a good vet. I have him fighting a guy coming off of a knockout win, David Onama. And I think Onama's a few slides. Yeah, copied the Israel Adesanya celebration. Yeah. Now I don't have a whole lot to say about this fight, but Onama's on a little bit of an upward trajectory coming off that win. Sabatini will fight down in the rankings, obviously. So it makes sense.
Yep. Two horrible fighters makes sense.
And with that, now we'll move on to the fight night card taking place this weekend. UFC Vegas, Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig. We'll jump right into the main event, Allen versus Craig. What do you make of this one?
Interesting matchup. I just talked about, how Lopez and Bryce Mitchell would be, some even like skills wise. This is pretty even skills wise. I feel like Paul Craig off his back is a dangerous man. We've come to learn that. So, but I just feel like Brendan Allen is the younger, hungrier guy thing, right? Yep. He's looking rejuvenated after a bit of a rocky start to his UFC career. Now he's coming into his own. Gotten some good victories here recently. And now he's in a main event. I mean, this is a horrible main event. Don't get me wrong, but it's a main event nonetheless. It's a 5-round fight against, a good name in Paul Craig at a new weight class in his own right, who was kind of plateauing at 205. Now maybe, he can rejuvenate his career here at 185. It's a tough cut for him. He looked pretty drained this morning, but it'll be interesting, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I like Paul Craig more at middleweight. I know he, like you said, he's a little bit drained. He has to cut a lot more weight to make down to 185. But he always looked like a smaller 205er out there. He didn't look very big amongst those guys. So I like this move down. And he showed it in his last fight, getting his first KO win. I know it was a TKO because of elbows, but his first KO win over Andre Muniz. So I think it's a new Paul Craig. I think it's a better Paul Craig. But this matchup against Brendan Allen is going to be tough for him. Allen, I know he does good work on the ground. His last couple of fights have ended in submission. He subbed Andre Muniz, he subbed Bruno Silva, both by rear naked choke, I believe. So he can work on the ground. Now, I don't think that's where he wants to be against Paul Craig. We've seen anytime you get in Paul Craig, there's a serious threat of getting caught by one of his triangles. So he cannot go down to the ground with them. And I don't think he'll have a problem avoiding that. I think he'll keep this on the feet long enough where he can catch Paul Craig, who is known to be chinny. And now that he's cutting a lot more weight, I think he's going to be even more chinny. We didn't really see his chin get tested against Andre Muniz. I think it will against Brendan Allen, and I think Allen's going to catch him at some point.
Definitely going to catch him. Paul Craig, I'm not going to bypass what I was seeing Paul Craig do, 2-3 fights ago against, what was it, Volkan Oezdemir, right? Where he's just like laying on his back, praying for him to come down on the ground with him. Just an embarrassing performance. Yep. This is a guy who, it feels like every 2 or 3 fights, he makes a mockery of himself, trying to stand up and strike with people and kind of turned into a Ryan Hall where he's just like going to the ground, like begging you to come to the ground with him. Like, please, this is the only way I can win. And I really I could see it happening. It's been 2 or 3 fights. Brendan Allen has some good power. And I don't, like you mentioned, I don't think he'll want to go down on the ground. Even though he has great top control, he has good subs in his own right. You just don't want to risk that against Paul Craig. And I just think you can keep this standing. You're gonna catch that chin, and you're gonna knock it out at some point. Paul Craig will quit. He always wants to quit in the striking.
He has tapped the strikes before.
It's gonna happen. And I'm picking Brendan Allen to get a good win.
Yeah, and I know you said Brendan Allen has good top control, no doubt about that. But Ankalaev also has good top control, and we saw, and I granted it was a lot earlier in Ankalaev's career, but we saw Paul Craig, throw up a triangle in the dying seconds of a fight and get that win over Ankalaev, despite how good his top control is. So even if Allen does have that, it's still not a place he wants to be, not where he wants to be, is on the ground with Paul Craig. And like you said, like we both said, I think he's going to avoid it. And I don't think it'll take long for him to find that chin of Paul Craig.
No, and even if it does take a little longer, he's going to win every exchange on the feet.
Yep.
Paul Craig's just bad. He just has bad striking, man. So,
yep.
He's a strong guy. Don't be wrong. He can catch him. He finally got a TKO win because of elbows in closed guard. It's fluke KO, but not fluke KO. But you get what I mean. It's not like a true like KO striking wise, right?
Yeah.
There was still a lot of ground game involved. So,
yep.
If this doesn't go to the ground, it's over quick. Like you mentioned, he'll be quick. If it goes to the ground, definitely an interesting fight. It would be much more interesting on the ground, much more even on the ground than striking. So, but yeah, Brendan Allen's going to win this.
Yep. My prediction, I was thinking maybe Brendan Allen. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to say in round 2, he gets knocked down on Paul Craig. I was thinking maybe he's going to jump on his back or jump on top of him. Paul Craig's going to, turn, give up his back, trying to get up. And maybe Allen could find another rear naked choke, making it 3 in a row. I'm not going to count on that happening, though. I'm not going to count on him getting a submission. I think he's going to finish this fight off the ground and pound, get a TKO win midway through round 2. That's my prediction.
I'm going to say same deal, just it happens in round 1. I just don't
think it lasts long.
I don't trust his chin. I just don't trust it. So
understandable, especially at middleweight. I know he looked great against Andre Muniz, but he already had a bad chin at light heavyweight. I think it's going to be even worse at middleweight.
Yeah, and big guy. It's not a small middleweight here, so he can definitely land.
Yep, absolutely. We'll move on to the co-main event. Michael Morales, undefeated prospect, versus Jake Matthews. I like this fight. I like this fight a lot. Michael Morales, very exciting striker, very rangy. Jake Matthews, he's not the most flashy fighter. He's a solid wrestler. He's got good boxing. Pretty limited skill set when it comes to his boxing. It's pretty standard. But still, very scrappy guy. Very tough fighter, and it's gonna be a challenge for Morales.
I feel, was it Aussie card like a year and a half ago where we saw a new version of Jake Matthews and we were like, oh my God, Jake Matthews has elite boxing now. I can't believe he's found his range. He knows how to range and do all, and then he just comes back to earth and loses like 2 fights in a row now. And it's like,
I think he beat, I want to say Andre, was it against Andre Fialho?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
That's the about where he just looks so good and they knocked him out. And it's like, oh my God, career resurgence for him. And then it's kind of been downhill from there.
Which that win over Andre Fialho hasn't aged the most gracefully. Fialho since been cut by the UFC because he sucks.
Exactly. And this kind of just feels like a spot where they're going to let Michael Morales go to work here and tee off on, I don't want to say a punching bag. Jake Matthews will fight back, right? But, Michael Morales needs a good win, a kind of a big name here in Jake Matthews and a co-main. Michael Morales, even though he's undefeated, and I've been pretty high on him, he's been underwhelming. He hasn't, he's kind of lost some rounds. He hasn't looked dominant. So, kind of just a good chance here to use that range, like you mentioned. He's the longer guy here. He's a big guy, and make a statement here at welterweight because he's a young guy. I mean, what is he, like 25, 26? Yeah. Michael Morales is, and I'm excited to see him. I hope he looks better in this fight against a lesser opponent. Not lesser, but, a guy that he should be able to beat. And, we'll see.
Yeah. Michael Morales, he's not as scary of a prospect as other welterweights are, but he's 15-0. He's got great striking. He's so rangy, like you said, so he can pick you apart from far away. He's going to be tough to beat for Jake Matthews, who he's going to make it a scrap at times. I think he's going to get inside, try and get in the pocket and land some shots. But Jake Matthews really doesn't have much power. I know, like you said, we saw that knockout win over Andre Fialho, but it's Andre Fialho. We've seen how that's aged. It's not hard to do if you're a UFC fighter. So I'm not going to put too much stock into that win over Fialho. And other than that, he doesn't have much on his record when it comes to knockouts, especially in the UFC. So I don't think he's going to catch Morales. I don't think he's going to get a fluke flash KO or anything like that. And I don't think Morales is going to put him out cold either. I know some of his fights have been relatively boring. They've been kind of points fest where he just sits at range and picks at his opponent. I think he's going to do the same in this one. I think it's going to be a 30-27 win for Michael Morales. I think he'll stay at a comfortable range for him and pick apart with the kicks, especially to the body. I think he'll tear up the body with the kicks. Maybe land some big shots, but yeah, won't get a finish in this one, I don't think.
And that just kind of feels like what's holding Morales back here is just that next switch where he can look for that finish.
Yeah.
That highly undefeated prospects have been able to just do, like get quick finishes, have that one thing that just makes them elite, right? And Michael Morales is still searching for it. He doesn't have the KO power like you mentioned. I think it'll be another decision victory for him. Like he'll get a good win, but he'll still maybe be talked down a little bit, and the record will be looked down upon of 16-0 because it's like, well, how many of those are decisions, right? How many didn't look outstanding in any of those fights? And now that he's been in the UFC for a little bit here, when are you going to start fighting some better guys? And are you still going to be able to dominate on these little cans right here and keep your undefeated record, right? So just kind of another, I wouldn't even call it a fight up for Morales. He's going to win, but if it's a decision, he needs to get a finish.
Yeah.
To be looked at seriously here. And if not, then he's just a okay fighter with a 16-0 record at that point.
That's fair. I'm with you on that. The last fight we'll talk about on this card, because it's a pretty weak card overall. Chase Hooper versus Jordan Leavitt. Chase Hooper, 24, going into this fight. Younger guy. Both got good ground game here. What do you make of this one?
Jordan Leavitt, the monkey man or whatever they call him. That's not racing.
That's the name he's given himself. It's not. Yep.
Not saying what he looks like or anything of the such. He called himself that. So
look at his Instagram captions. He puts the monkey and king emojis in each of them. So that's by himself.
And Chase Hooper, while he looks 17, feels like he should be 30 for as long as he's been in the UFC.
Yeah.
He's so hot and cold, Chase Hooper. Like one fight he'll look lights out, and then in the next fight he'll look like, why are you in the UFC? And Jordan Leavitt is a pretty solid fighter.
Yeah.
Outside of Paddy Pimblett, he's had some good wins.
He got a big knockout recently, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't game. He's a pretty scrawny looking dude.
Yeah.
Both guys look pretty scrawny in this fight, actually. But Jordan Leavitt, who I just feel like has that ability to have flashy finishes for whatever reason. He always finds a way to get a cool finish. He slammed that dude on his head that one time. He gets subs. He's got great grappling. I think this will go to the ground, but I trust Jordan Leavitt more than I trust Chase Hooper because Chase Hooper's so inconsistent. So I'm going to pick Jordan Leavitt in this fight.
I want to pick Jordan Leavitt. I want to go with the vet, the guy who has, who's been around longer. And I do trust him more, like you said. My gut's telling me Jordan Leavitt, and I should go with him because of that. But I'm gonna go with Chase Hooper here. I'm gonna go with I think he has a higher ceiling. I think he's a better fighter when he's at his highest. I think it's gonna go down to the mat at some point. I'm gonna say late in round 2. He finds a submission. Either that, or you could just see a 3-round fight full of grappling exchanges and interesting moments on the feet. But ultimately, I think Chase Hooper is going to escape here with a win.
And I like finish. I personally have Jordan Leavitt by decision, but I hope there's a finish.
Yeah.
Both guys go to the ground, and it'll be some great grappling exchanges. I hope we see a sub, but I think the defense will win out, and we'll get a 29-28 Jordan Leavitt here.
Okay, I like it. It's a fair prediction. All right. In the news, not a lot since last weekend, but we do have Aljamain Sterling confirming his move up to 145 pounds, and he called out Max Holloway. He wants that fight against Max Holloway, and we've been talking about that for a while. That's a fight we'd like to see be made. Holloway doesn't really have anyone else at featherweight, but it still feels like he needs another win, especially a big win if he's going to get another title shot against Volk or just a title shot in general next. So a move up to featherweight for Aljo seems to be in the future, and that Holloway fight seems perfect.
And I believe after the Sean O'Malley fight, when we made our, fighter, who should they fight next thing, I said Aljo next. Holloway makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense.
Been preaching it for a while.
let's see it, guys. Let's see it. It makes sense, and let's do it. But I'm glad he's finally confirmed that he's finally at featherweight now. He needed to do that because.
And Merab can finally stop putting his career aside for Aljo.
I'm gonna wait for Aljo to get his.
You're getting too old, Merab. You can't keep waiting forever. It's time to fight.
I don't know, man. Them goblins live forever, though. You know, he might be in his prime forever, man. He might never.
I have doubts that he's as old as he says he is. I think he's like 40 or something. Looking at his face,
he might be like 300 years old, and he's
honestly
posing as a 30-year-old. But man, I don't know.
I can see it.
Finally, Murat, shut the fuck up about his bestie.
Yep, he can get out of Aljo's shadow for once. So there we go. And that's all. That's pretty much all we have for the UFC news roundup. So, yeah. Well, that'll conclude episode 14 of UFC Casuals. If you've watched this far, thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd be kind enough to leave a like and maybe a subscription, it'd be much appreciated. And we will see you guys next week.
See you guys.